Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of The Other Side of Addiction. Brad and I think we were even saying this the other day, Brad and I are really two lucky guys here because this room is filled with three beautiful women. So yeah, guys, thank you. We missed JD. JD and his family is fighting some illnesses right now, so Charity has stepped into his place. Charity, thank you so much for stepping into JD's spot to come in and co-host.
My pleasure, always.
Yeah, we appreciate you a ton. And we have a real special guest co-host today, and it's my lovely wife sitting over here in the corner.
Hello.
Matter of fact, last week she was like, who's going to be on the show? So I was telling her, and she's like, can I come in and be a guest co-host? So I'm like, absolutely. At first she thought I forgot her, but no, I did not forget her. I know better than that. I would have been paying for it for weeks. Hey, we got a great show for you guys today. We have Chalese Stevens. Chalese, thank you so much for taking time out of your morning to be with us.
Well, thank you.
So Chalese and I, we actually kind of met each other. We was at a West Jordan Chamber luncheon, and I got up and did my 60-second spill, and we didn't get a chance to talk after the luncheon because people start networking and different things happen. But she reached out to me the day after through an email and said, hey, I'd like to sit down and chat with you. And so Jeanette and I, we actually met her over at the business and started hearing about her story, and we were both just like, oh my gosh, we got to try to fit you in. And things happen for a reason. The gentleman who was supposed to be on the show in this time slot was traveling. Said, hey mate, that's his Laban.
Hey,
he'll be on our show soon. But yeah, he's like, hey mate, I'll be flying over the Atlantic. I won't be able to help you. So we're like, all right. So I got a hold of Chalese and said, hey, you want that spot? Because we had her booked for January, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are
So
you still using your accent?
no.
It sure
I'm not. Did it
sounded
sound
like
like it? Well, it's a terrible Australian accent. Maybe we won't have Jeanette on the show as the co-host. But so anyway, yeah, it's great to have you with us. And you've got a book that Jeanette started reading. I think she read half of it last night.
A little more than that, yeah.
Yeah, but we'll get to that around the end of the show because we definitely want to share your book with everybody. But I tell you what, this beautiful lady has just an awesome, awesome story. And that's why we wanted to get her on the show, because I'm sure there are people out there who have gone through this. I couldn't imagine myself going through what Chalese went through. And I've got another friend who we both know, Julie Clough. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I've got goosebumps already just
Me
even
too.
talking about it. And we
Me
haven't
too.
even gotten into the story. But so I'm not sitting here rambling on. I'm going to read a little bit about Chalese's bio here. So Chalese Stevens, alongside her fiancé and, love of her life. and I met him too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's...
Briefly that day.
Brett? Was it Brett?
Brent.
It was
Yeah.
Brent. So, and it's right here. Brent runs the grill inside of Good Spirits, where she also does PR, marketing, and events management. She has, I don't know why I'm always having such a hard time. I think it's because it's so small. She has a drive and motivation to help strengthen the community and small businesses. I love that. But she discovered her real purpose when she faced every mother's worst nightmare. And I'm not going to go into that, but it was in June of 2004. Gosh, I don't want to spoil the show by reading the rest of this bio, but just tell us a little bit more about yourself, just kind of on the, where did you grow up? It seems like you and I might even know some of the same people as we were talking, but let's go into that, and then we'll get into this story because you did battle with some addiction and some things, and I can understand why, because I probably would have done the same damn thing you did. Yeah.
Well, I was born in California, and that's still home for me. But I actually grew up and went to school in Idaho, and I got married at a very young age and had my baby. I was 20 when I had him, my first, and that marriage didn't last for very long. But then my life definitely encountered some trauma, but that will be the story that we talk about later. But then I ended up moving back to Salt Lake and have lived here for most of the time. I moved back to California for a little while, but my family lives here, and I've probably done every job that you can imagine to just get through and find my niche. I've taken care of a lot. I've been a caregiver and in-home healthcare provider for many, many years, and then I just got burned out on that, because when you're taking care of somebody all the time, it gets to you. Plus, I was pregnant with my last baby at that time, and it just was my back was giving me issues, and the pregnancy was like, nope, you're done. It's time to take care of you and your family. So yeah, I mean, a lot of my story is intertwined with who I am, so I don't know how much of detail do you want me to go into, because that will be part of the story. But.
Yeah. Well, and I have to tip my hat off to you for being a caregiver, and I've told my wife this many times. People who do that, that's a special person. I mean, to me, it is a very special person to be able to be there for people in need and take care of them, because it's not easy.
No, and actually, when we were meeting last week, I was in the middle, because I live with my uncle and my Down syndrome cousin now to help take care of them when they need it. And my uncle had just been admitted to the hospital, and so I was running around like crazy. And it's really funny how like everything works out, because I wasn't sure that I would be able to do the show today, because I've been so just drained. But I'm like, my fiancé, he was like, this fuels your soul. You need this, because this is what makes you who you are. And even though you feel too burned out to do anything right now, he's like, go and do it. And so, of course, like, I got up this morning, I was all excited.
And we're very blessed to have you in the studio. And I was that way yesterday, because we haven't been in the studio for a couple weeks because of plans and different things that's been happening with our schedules. And I mean, I was asked Janan, I was like a little boy at Christmas yesterday. I'm like, I get to go to the studio. And then today I was like, yeah, we're back in the studio. So yeah, thank you. So you ran into some issues throughout your life with addiction, but you didn't have an addiction issue until something tragic happened in your life. So I mean, let's just share that. Okay. I mean, what happened? Because again, we'll let you take over.
Okay. Well, in June of 2004, I lost my son. He was 4 years old, and he drowned at a water park. And I was 25. And so it's so funny now when people talk about like, oh, I'm turning 25 and like all this stuff, and they have so much to look forward to. And I was like, yeah, that was the worst year of my life. And but I definitely went into a deep, dark funk, and it's something that I didn't start talking about for a long time, because I didn't want anybody to know. I hid it from my family. I hid it from the only people that knew were my closest friends, and that was my tribe at that time. And honestly, I always joke around. I'm like, well, I only did it on weekends, and started on Thursday and ended on Monday. So
sounds familiar.
But I mean, it was definitely one of those things that it was in and out for me. I think more so than being addicted to the drugs and alcohol that I was participating in, I was more addicted to the escape. And I actually woke up this morning thinking about that, because I'm like, how do I talk about this because I don't feel like an addict, and I didn't even at the time, but my addiction definitely was the escape. And it was getting away from my reality, and it also was able to open up doors for me to be able to talk about and heal from all the deep emotions that I had. And I went after that so that happened for about 3 months. And then my best friend, who was also mentioned in the book because this is a huge pivotal moment of my life, her daughter, she was older than me, and her daughter was my age. She was in the Peace Corps, and she got in an accident and ended up being thrown out of the back of a truck, and her brain hemorrhaged. And I was like, I have nothing left here, Rose, I'm going with you. And they were able to stabilize her and take her to Pretoria, South Africa. And I flew with her, and during that whole time, like, there was no alcohol and no drugs. Like, every once in a while I would have a glass of wine, but like, it was hospital caregiving that whole entire time, and it was a huge part of my healing as well. But then as soon as I got back, I know I'm skipping over a lot of parts because this will take, 4 days to talk about.
Hey, we have plenty of time.
But when I got back, it was that in and out again, in and out, because I was back facing reality. And once I was like, oh wait, I'm coming home and my little boy's not here still. And even though I definitely had those moments throughout, my time in Africa, that wasn't my focus because it was helping somebody else heal at that point. And even though I was healing through it and a lot of cool things happened while I was there, it wasn't my reality again. It was, I got to go away. And so then when I came back, it definitely started up again. And and it took a while to get through it, but I ended up finally one day being like, I'm done.
Isn't it crazy how we can get ourselves out of an element and it seems like life's okay, right?
Yeah.
I mean, going to Africa, I would think that would probably be something that helped me as well. I was talking to a gentleman at the gym this morning, ran into a guy at the gym. I just said hello to him and we started chatting, and he's actually in recovery right now, which it's so weird how this stuff seems to happen.
Yeah.
And he was telling me that he's had a lot of friends that back in California when they were doing their dealing and drugging and partying and all that stuff, they came here for rehab and they ended up staying. And they ended up staying because they got themselves out of that other reality, which you had to go back to. But they were able to pull themselves out because they knew if they went back to that, they were going to get sucked right back in. Life has that way of turning on that vacuum and bringing you right back somewhere where you're really working your ass off to get away from. So that's crazy how, because a lot of people I think out there, and we shared a little bit about it in another show, but a lot of people out there think an addict's an addict. That's what they choose to be, and they don't choose to be. And you just proved it by saying, yeah, you left to help a friend and life was okay, but it wasn't the reality. And then you come back and you got that weight on your shoulders again.
For sure. Yeah.
And
I know, like, even though I didn't go through the normal cycle, well, I don't even know if there's a normal cycle to addicts or anything, because I've been helping a lot of people that have been way worse than I have. And then also I have people that I know in my life that don't even get to the point where I did, but they have gone through rehab, and they're, a lot of things in the way that they view themselves. I think it's just different for everybody. Everybody's story is different, and everybody's why is different, and everybody's journey is different. And it's hard to label anyone as anything at this point, because a label is just that, like, it's trying to put you in a box, and there's no such thing as being there's no box.
Right.
The only box is what society labels you as, and nobody would have ever guessed, except for the people that knew me best, that I was going through that I was doing what I was doing, and they just thought that I was, kind of just shutting myself out because I wasn't super close to my family. I definitely pushed them all away, but I had done that before because I had already had, like, my own issues that I was trying to deal with, and just they weren't around me when I had my son. So when I lost my son for the first time, I was always the fixer in my house. I always had that role. And so when I wasn't available to them. It was, and I told them, I said, this gets to be mine. This gets to be my grief. This gets to be my pain. I'm not going to heal you. I'm not going to be there for you. I don't want to be because I can't. I don't even know how to be there for myself right now.
Yeah.
So that's why I escaped into the world of people that I did, like, they were there for me when I was a single mom and I had my son, and every single day they were helping me out. And so, like, we were there, and then it just got to that point. And it was always around, but it was never something that I participated in. I mean, once or twice, but not like, you know. So obviously I knew what it did. So then when it was there, I was like, okay, yep, this is where we're going. And my drug of choice was definitely cocaine and alcohol.
Well, those two are the perfect combination.
Oh yeah. I didn't want to do one or the other by itself.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because even during my time, that's how it was with me. It had to be both.
Yeah.
You know, you couldn't do one without the other.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people that I've seen in AA meetings and stuff like that, they've talked about that. You know, they've said that they were an alcoholic and an addict, and that was usually the two combination. You didn't hear very many people say I was addicted to heroin, but I was also an alcoholic, because usually just those are enough for the people. Did you find it to where when you were starting to use and drink after losing your son, did you find that people were kind of accepting of that, going, oh, it's okay that she's doing it because of what happened? I mean, were they kind of like being blind of it and just kind of turning the other cheek?
I think because the people that I was doing it with were so close to my son too, it just, of course it was accepted because that's all they wanted to do as well. And so they felt that pain, and then it gave them an excuse. I mean, it was an excuse to be like, you know what, she's hurting, let's help her. And yeah. So the other people that, I mean, I know that a lot of people eventually are like, well, I totally know that they're doing drugs and everything. Nobody knew. Nobody knew until my book came out last year.
Wow.
And I'd been, like, clean. I mean, I still drink, but, like, I hadn't touched drugs for years. And nobody knew.
Until they read that book.
Until they read it. Or I started talking a little bit about it. And there was a couple other podcasts that I'd done that I started to kind of come out and talk about it a little bit because of other people that have come into my life that started dealing with that and started doing a lot of drugs and started down that road. And I'm like, I gotta start sharing this part of my story, because as much as I wouldn't change anything at the time, I definitely, like, I wish that I'm like, I see these other people and I wish that I could be, you know, start a nonprofit and write a book and all these things. Like, I wish that I was, like, threw myself into something else besides this, like, spiral of self-sabotage and numbing myself. But then I'm like, you know, all the stories, all the people that I've met now and through that whole process, I'm so grateful that I got to live in that world for a little while and not get swallowed up by it, but come out of it to be able to talk about it now.
Yeah. And I think that's where, like you said, where that difference is, because it could consume you pretty easy, because drugs and alcohol or depression has a way of just, before you know it, you can't pick your head up anymore because it has consumed you so much. And going through what you went through, I mean, I could probably honestly say right now, I would probably have been in that same damn boat, and I'm sure I would have done everything I could to numb the hell. As soon as I started feeling, I'd want to probably numb it. And I don't know if I'd be able to pull myself out of it, you know. And till you get to that point, you know, it's be like, oh, I understand and I feel for you. No, I don't understand, because it hasn't happened to me.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't in your shoes. And there's been so many people that the same thing has happened to them, and it ended up taking their life.
Oh, I think it actually saved me from doing that.
Wow.
Was to be able to go and just, because then I could connect with people that I trusted and I loved. And I know as much as, you know, you talk about enablers, and I've been on that side of it too, been the enabler, but at that point, they were the only people that I trusted to be able to, because I could be my full self. I could be bad. I could just let loose. I could talk about all my feelings, of course, because when you're doing cocaine, you know, you get to talk about everything.
Oh, yeah. It
And
makes you
everybody's
talk.
like, oh, yeah, I totally get it. And so, and we all talked about it, and I wrote, and because I love writing too. And so, and I just wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I would write poetry, and I would write all these things. And that was so healing for me. And then, like, and I also did a lot of, like, when I wasn't high, I would do a lot of energy healing too. And I think that helped me propel all of that out. Like, it's such a crazy story to me, like, talking about it, because I can put myself back in those moments like that, and remember how I felt. And I really do believe that if it wasn't for that, I probably would have killed myself. I mean, I'd like to say I wouldn't, but, you know, you can't do the what ifs and could haves and would haves and should haves, and I would have been strong enough. I don't know if I would have been without that extra help of you know, self-medicating.
Yeah.
So I didn't.
I find that so interesting that you say that. I can't imagine losing a child. I can't. I know what losing my husband did to me. And through my own journey, one thing I always said was that if I lost my son, I had nothing left to live for. So I find it so interesting that you're able to say, I think that my addiction actually saved me. And it gets me kind of thinking a little bit more about my own journey, because it sounds strange, but in a way, it saved me too. Mm-hmm. There was something about those moments of just falling into that despair where something else, and I don't know if it's because I was under the influence of something, so that kind of held a certain boundary line. I don't know. That's something for me to explore, and I really appreciate that you shared that.
Of course. Well, I think in a way, I mean, you're never going to fill that void. But in a way, for me at that time, that's what I was doing, or at least trying. I was searching for that, like, just some way to you know, fill this void, some way to, like, stop the pain from oozing out all over the place, and it was like a Band-Aid, and so it's like, okay, right, I can get through today because I have something to look forward to. And the come down was not anything to look forward to, but
no, never is.
Yeah.
And I knew that every time. I'm like, oh, here we go. Oh, it's fine. It's not for 12 hours.
It's only for a few hours I got to deal with. You know, one thing, and I hope I heard you right when we met. I think I remember you saying to a point that you realized one day that you needed to start celebrating that time with your son instead of medicating and trying to forget, and to where you're like, man, I had 4 beautiful years with this incredible child.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I think that was right away almost, because, and that was another thing that it allowed me to do, is because I could talk about the memories, and I'm very big on memories, and I love creating memories and making memories and doing things, and being able to talk about the life of him I wasn't so much trying to escape that. I was more trying to just escape the pain and the reality that he's not going to be there, because when I was in those moments, it was just like, you know, he's just, you know, somewhere else right now, and it's not real.
Yeah.
But we were able to talk about it and reminisce and everything, and so that was definitely something that I did, and I think what you're also referring to is that I'm at a point now where I can honestly say that I'm not grateful for losing my son. Never, never, never. But I am grateful for the opportunity to have gone through this tragedy, because of the impact I've been able to make, and that he's helped me be able to make from the other side. Because whatever you believe in, energy, spirit, angels, whatever, there is definitely something more.
Yes.
Yes.
And even if I'm just making it up in my head, it makes me feel a lot better.
Well, and I think you have everybody that's in this studio today is feeling
Yeah.
the same way. And I know I'm not mistaken because I've got goosebumps
Yeah.
already, but you came on a show with us just recently as the guest co-host. And I tell you what was going on yesterday, there was something. I mean, you know, Lori and Lindsay's, you know, Lori's brother and Lindsay's uncle who had passed, there was something going on because we were talking to Lori this morning. She reached out to us and to ask some questions, and she goes, my brother was so present yesterday. She goes, my lights were flickering. We had issues with the camera freezing up. I mean, Charity said that she felt it. My wife said I felt something going on. So, yeah, and I don't know how you were feeling yesterday, but there was something.
You know, the thing is about me is that I always feel it. Always.
Okay.
I also feel when it's not there. And one of the cool stories, and I can, since we're talking about this, the first time that I always felt him around me, but the first time I felt him leave me was when I found out about my friend's daughter in Africa, and I said, you need to go be with her because I am not going to let what happened to me happen to my best friend, or what's happening to me, my feelings.
Yeah.
And I felt him leave me.
Wow.
And when we got there about 3 or 4 days later, I felt him jump up and be like, you made it. I've been here. Like, and just like, it was super, super powerful.
Holy cow. Did you have something,
Yeah.
Jan? I could
I
see
was
you
gonna
over
say,
there.
I read that in your book last night, and I was like, I mean, I got chills and everything. It was so cool. It would be just so cool to have that feeling. You know, you could tell that he was there because he was there, and then he wasn't when you asked him to leave.
Yeah.
And that's so cool. That's just such a cool experience,
And
I'm sure.
that's why I know that, and don't get me wrong, I mean, there's a very human side to me, and that's why I say, like, it's okay. All these feelings that we're feeling, it's okay to feel. Like, just, his birthday was just a couple weeks ago, and he would have been 22. And I never know when it's going to hit me, but it always hits me. And I really think it was actually yesterday or the day before for me, because I felt so heavy, and I was like, why? But it's finally because I was done doing the chaotic stuff I was doing, and I could just sit and be with it. And I was so heavy, and I get so sad and so depressed. And I'm like the most productive depressed person though ever, because like when I get depressed, like I am, like, I've gotten so much done.
Me too.
I'm like, I can't, because laying there, all I want to do is lay there, and I know I can't because I got kids and I got a business and I got all these other things, but I'm like, I can't do this today. And then it's like, yes, you can. Like, just do this.
Yeah.
But that was always my Rose too, and she would be like, just, Chalese, all you have to do is make your bed and floss your teeth. Don't do anything else today. Just do that. And so I would every day get up at some point, make my bed and floss my teeth. And so that really, and I'm an action-oriented person too. I'm a very hands-on, like, I gotta move. And, but yeah, it still hits me, and it still has those moments. And now I know I have the tools to get through it. I know I have the angels that I can talk to that help me get through it. Even, you know, I'm like, okay, just, you know, smack me in the face or give me something to look forward to. Give me something to do. And then something always happens. Every time to, like, okay, that's the little bit of energy I needed to keep going.
You know, really, like you said, it is just a little bit. Because, and I've talked about this on the show before, when I lost my job, I was really depressed. And Janann would come home from work, and I'd still be flipping, laying in bed, watching TV, you know, and she'd say, what did you do today? Nothing. And this went on for a couple weeks. Then one day she came home, and she just freaking ripped into me. She's like, look, you're better than this. You're going to start painting the house. And I'm like, the hell if I am. She goes, no, you're going to paint the living room. I'm like, no, I'm not. And we had all these gift cards because we had just gotten married. And she's like, yeah, I think it was a weekend. She's like, come on, we're going to go to the store and we're going to pick out paint. And so we went, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. Okay, we're going to get the paint, but it's going to frickin' sit in the garage because I ain't touching anything. And then once we had everything, I remember one morning I got up after she left for work, and I'm like, you know what, maybe I will. Maybe I'll do something. And I dinked around, did a little bit of sanding, and I don't know how much time. It wasn't much, and then screw it. Went back, laid down in bed, turned on the TV. But then each day I got up and I started doing just a little bit more. And then I remember she come home one day and she's like, holy cow, the living room's painted. I mean, I had painted the living room.
Yeah.
So just those little teeny baby steps.
The little baby steps. Yep.
Yeah, and we had two gentlemen on our show here not too long ago, Nick and Ryan, and they started a group Facebook page, which I think you would be awesome to get on that, and also to be one of their guests on Waking Up with Giants or Wake Up with Giants. Are you part of it?
Funny?
What?
Because of Nicole yesterday, I actually got scheduled. I'm doing it.
Oh, see, awesome. Because
Yay. We were talking about it last night, and I'm like, you really need to tell her about that show.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
Nick, when he was on the show, he was talking about that depression is, I'm trying to remember how he put it now. Depression is actually a blessing. It really is. And he went on and spoke about why depression is such a blessing, and it's because you can learn from it. If you can get yourself to where you can get out of that, because he was depressed as well at one time, went through a divorce, and he talked about he went out in the middle of the desert and he was out walking and just trying to think of life, and he looked down and he found a marble out there in the middle of frickin' nowhere. And he said something about putting this marble in a jar. And we actually used that as like the caption of putting a marble in the jar. And he started realizing what he was learning from his depression. Mm-hmm. So many of us get so drawn in with that depression, though. It's almost like the addiction. It sucks us in so deep we don't know how to get out of it. But if you start going back and look of where it took you and the positive things, because there, as Nick says, there's always a positive in that negative. Just got to search for it.
Yeah.
And you searched for it and you found it, or it just happened to pop up.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things that I have to search for sometimes. I did search for it. But I also think that there's a lot of people that can't, just like you said, that get sucked in so deeply that can't pull themselves out. And I guess it's that same thing of like, how come sometimes, people can survive this and other people don't, or, vice versa. I have that with my son. Like, I see drownings all the time. Sometimes kids make it, sometimes they don't. And it's like, why was my kid taken and the others, there's so many that are saved or are rescued and make it. But there's always, and that's where I'm like, there's always got to be a reason. And that's what I search for, is that reason. And now I know that it's my reason. I know that it's my purpose. I know that every single aspect of my story has something in it to help others. And sometimes it's hard, though, when I look at my story and people are like, oh, you're so amazing. I'm like, I'm just trying to get through.
It is hard to see that. I struggle with it when people are like, you're so inspiring. And I'm like, that feels weird to me because I don't see myself that way. Really, like, it's what I want to do. But I'm just learning myself. Yeah. I'm moving through it.
Well, and when we're, I'm sure you feel this too, when you're in a good place, it's like, I am inspiring. This is because this is what I'm meant to do. Like, I didn't go through that to not be inspiring. So you better believe I'm going to be inspiring. But then when I'm in my darker moments where I'm like, no, like, it doesn't matter. Like, what? And I totally beat myself up over the stupidest things, and I'll find things to beat myself up over more than I find things to be happy for sometimes. And it doesn't last for as long as it used to. Like, it used to last, it could go for days where I'd be in this funk. But even, like, just Like I'm saying, like I'm being totally vulnerable and honest. Like the last couple of days where I'm like, okay, I haven't been this low for a long time, and I know there's been so much stress. We've lost more people in the last this last few months than I've lost. I've lost a lot of people in my life, but this month has been really hard, and plus again running a business on top of it, it's just like there's never a break. And so finally, it threw me into this major funk, and I'm like, I haven't felt this way in a long time. But I even told my fiance, I'm like, you probably should just find something to do tonight, go out with the guys or whatever, because I don't even want to be around me right now, so you shouldn't be around me either. Like, I'm sending the kids with their dad, like, I just need to be. And he's like, no, Chalese, he's like, you're not alone. I'm coming home. And we had a great night, and it actually helped. I was like, I wasn't trying to be that, like, oh, I'm, a victim or anything. I was like, no, I just need to be alone, and I want to be a victim, and I don't want anybody else to have to be a victim with me. But he was able to pull me out, and that's why it's so powerful. And that's the other thing about my addiction in that time is, like, I had the people that I love most around me all the time. And that helped me immensely. And so I'm huge on that. Like, I just read this book, and I love it so much because he says, we as people are not meant to do this alone. We're not meant to be alone. And, we talk so much about codependency and all these things. And he's saying, there's nothing wrong with being dependent on the person you love or the people you love, even if it's not like a relationship. But like there's obviously there's unhealthy boundaries as well.
Yes.
But that's not what we're talking about. But just being able to like have him come home and be there with me and finally feel okay yesterday was all I needed. And I call him my emotional support human.
Emotional support human. I like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I know that I'm that for him too, and that doesn't make us codependent on each other. It makes us a team and
interdependent.
Interdependent, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we are wired for connection, and without it, we can't survive. Like we literally depend on each other to make it through and to build and grow and to survive.
Yeah, and look at how many people are struggling right now because of the COVID and
I was just getting ready to say that.
Yeah, and it's been like the most devastating thing for so many people. And a lot of great things have come from it, and a lot of not so great things have come from it. But I think the one thing that the majority of people have learned is how much we need each other.
The connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I want to make sure our audience knows as well, too, that it's okay to have those bad days.
Yeah.
Because so many of us think, I got to be strong, I've got to show my true self. And you know what? Okay, great. But you deserve to feel like shit sometimes. Yeah. I mean, you deserve to be depressed during a day. You deserve to be angry, The secret of it is, though, and you shared it, don't let it take you.
Yeah.
You have those moments, and you deserve those moments because, again, that's part of that stepping stone. And that's something I have learned throughout all the stuff that's been going on in my life for the past 12 years, and our lives for the past 12 years, and it took a long time to realize that some people get it like that, and other people like me, just kind of a slow learner, I guess, but, but I deserved those times, and I still run into it every once in a while. I still get to that point where there's days I wake up and you could tell me all the positive shit you want in the world, and I'm like, yeah, screw you, But then I'll wake up the next day and go, no, man, this ain't taking me. It ain't taking me. And you get up and you drive and you post the post that I do on Facebook, or sometimes my wife will tell me, hey, come on, you're the one that has said this, or you know better than this, or whatever. And we've done that for each other when we've had those, and it's okay. I used to get on her if she was down. Yeah. And, it's like, because I was, bullshit, don't be like this, but now I've come to realize, no, it's okay for her to have that moment.
Yeah.
Because I have them too, so. Yeah.
I love that you bring that up too, because that's something that I've been learning in my journey. You know, for me on my own, it was, you know, I dealt with a lot of the shame and the guilt for not feeling okay or not being super positive and on the up all the time. And I'm now learning that is what makes me real. And those moments are so necessary for me, because they are my moments of growth. They are the moments where I'm like, okay, what is really going on? What's really happening here? And I'm now learning it's okay for me to have this moment. And when I accept that moment, it's amazing how fast I start coming up with answers. And I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Now I'm going to go do this.
Exactly. Well, and if you think about it, like there's always, when you plant a seed, it's in the dark, and that's where it grows.
Yes.
When there's a storm that comes
like that.
over, it's dark and it rains, but then it clears up and there's rainbows and there's beauty and there's all these things. It takes those moments of darkness to really find those.
Your growth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm learning that's what makes authenticity.
Oh,
That's
for sure.
what being authentic really means, is having those moments where you just show up as your messy, imperfect self.
Yep.
Because, well, there's no such thing as
Yeah.
perfect. And thank goodness. I'm finally thankful
Right.
for that. I'm like, oh gosh, I feel so much better now that I'm not trying to be perfect all the time. I just laugh with it now.
Yeah, and I think that you're also stunting other people's growth if you try to pretend to be perfect all the time, because that takes away from them having the opportunity to help you when you're down.
Well, and it's
You
a
know?
learning opportunity for them too, to go,
Right.
oh, it's okay that I have those moments too.
Right.
Well, and even with my kids, it's like, okay, you can go and feel that. We're going to figure out how to work through it. Go feel it for a minute, and then
Yes.
let's talk about it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I catch myself still doing it. Like, just be happy. Come on. Like, we're
Well, I
going to
think
do
we
this.
all do. We're conditioned that way, yeah.
But then I'm like, okay, if you need to be mad for a minute, be mad for a minute, or throw your little temper tantrum, and then let's figure out, you know, how to get through it, because it's the figuring out part that we need to learn.
Exactly.
It's the tools. It's, you know, all those things but being allowed to feel is number one.
Yep.
Love it.
Love that.
Well, guys, this is the first half of the show has been awesome. Great information, and we're gonna stop for a quick commercial break, but we'll be right back. So stay with us.
How do you start your morning? Start it with a cup of High Point coffee. Because no matter where you go or what you do, it's always better with coffee. High Point Coffee. What's your high point? Located on the corner of 7800 South and Redwood Road in West Jordan. And a special thanks goes out to our partners in Oxford, Mississippi.
This is Gregory, owner of Lift Up Concrete, proudly serving the Wasatch Front for the last 12 years, lifting sunk and flat work for both residential and commercial applications. Only fully trained professionals lifting concrete at your residence with the same quality of material and method used at every commercial job we ever do. Don't replace it, lift it. liftupconcrete.net, 801-792-4535. Contact us at liftupconcrete.net, or if you're looking for a complimentary quote, 801-792-4535. Again, 801-792-4535. Again, this is Gregory, Lift Up Concrete Lifting.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Talk Network. you can listen to my show, Resilience, every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On my show, we will be discussing what it takes for you to overcome the day-to-day challenges that all of us face in life, as well as some of the devastating ones that may lead us to feelings of hopelessness and despair. It's my goal to provide you with the tools and skills that you need to overcome anything that is thrown your way. To find out more about my show, visit our website at www.resiliencetalk.com. That's www.resiliencetalk.com. And as always, until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Other Side of Addiction. Gosh, we had a great first half of the show, some great information, and I don't even know where to go next. I mean, with the loss and things like that, but just to see how you were able to pull yourself out of this, and of course you have your moments, which we talked about at the end of the first half, that it's okay for us to have those moments, but we'll get into some more really good stuff here, but as we always do, we got to thank our sponsors before we go on. So, hey, we brought in a new sponsor today that we're very, very grateful for. As a matter of fact, he's my son-in-law, and very grateful. I was talking to him at our granddaughter's soccer game, and he's like, Pops, I'll sponsor. I'm like, that is so cool. So huge thank you to Rick Heaton. He's attorney at law, does personal injury. This guy is great. I mean, he will bend over backwards to help you. And I've been learning that he knows these insurance companies really, really well. Janan's whispering something over there. What?
He helps in Spanish-speaking
and
communities.
yes, and he is very fluent in Spanish. So, yeah, and he just loves helping people. That is his biggest thing. He's doing what he loves. I ask him all the time, how do you like this? And he's like, Pops, oh my gosh, I'm having so much fun. He just really enjoys this. So Rick, thank you so much. Huge thank you to Taffy Town as well out in West Jordan. We also want to say thank you to our good friends Cameron and Austin with Refiner Productions. Guys are just incredible, phenomenal. Computer Hospital, Letitia and Kevin, thank you guys. If you guys got computer issues, please go and see them. They're at 8721 South State in Sandy. They are honest. They will not rip you off. They are not there to screw you over. They're there to take care of you. Also want to say thank you to High Point Coffee, USARA, Utah Support Advocates of Recovery and Awareness. Thank you guys. Lift Up Concrete, our good friends, Jeanette and I's good friends, Gregory and Tosh, love those guys to death. And of course, Brad at Serve Pro West Jordan. But we want to say thank you to all the Serve Pros from Ogden all the way down to St. George. So, Jeanette, I think you had a question because you have been reading Chalese's book, and you were just like been dying to ask her a question about a certain individual that's in this book.
Yeah, I just want to hear more about David and where your relationship started and what he means to you.
Well, Dave is now he is my ex-husband. He's the dad of my two kids, Danny and DJ. And he was like a dad to Caleb when his dad wasn't around. Caleb is my son's name. I don't even think I mentioned that this whole time. We were acting together. He's an actor, and we were doing. I ran into him because I was going to school for film, and then he had a studio, and we just connected there. We became really good friends. My son fell in love with him, and he really stepped up to the plate because at that point I was no longer with Caleb's dad, and he had moved back to North Dakota where he was from and kind of abandoned us. And Dave found, I mean, when we came into his life, he's like, you know, he was great with Caleb, and I needed a male role model in his life to help me. Like, this kid was not easy. I mean, he was, you know, 3 years old at the time, and just a wild, free-spirited, crazy boy. And I was losing my mind. So he just really stepped up. And I mean, we went back and forth with relationship and whatever for a little while. And then finally, after when Caleb died, he was the first person I called. And actually, on the day that he died, I didn't even have my cell phone. And so now, to this day, when I don't have my cell phone, I totally panic. There's not like, yeah, anyway, but when we finally, Rose was with me when it happened. We went up to the hospital, and I was like, can we call Dave now? And Dave happened to be downtown and was there within 10 minutes. And he didn't even leave my side. Like, he really stepped up, and he was that person, even though, like, we have such a toxic, crazy relationship to this day. But without him, I don't know, without him and Rose, like, they were my two main people. Without them, I don't know that I would survive. Like, he was able to push me in ways to get up and do things and just keep going, even though he wasn't always nice about it. But he didn't baby me, he didn't coddle me, and neither did Rose. And they were like, no, I get you get to feel this way, but no, you done? Time to go. And they did things for me, like you were saying, with buying the paint. And like, okay, well, and Rose was the one that, and it's funny that you said paint, because she said to me, she called me when I was at a night of party, a weekend of partying, and she called me and she was like, okay, well, I bought all this paint because we're going to redo your basement. We're going to make sure that you have, you know, a new place basically to go to. And we still had our little Caleb place corner and everything. But she's like, you know, I have a heart condition, so I'm going to start doing this, and it's on you what happens next.
Oh,
I was like, God damn it, Rose. 10 minutes later, I was in my car.
That's a good one.
And and then, like, we spent the whole day together, and it was great. But, like, that, I'm like, you manipulative little, like, and there were times when, like, and Dave, for the first good 2, maybe more weeks, would, we would go to, we call it the shrine, his graveside. Every day, we would go up there. And then finally he's like, okay, we can't do this every day anymore. And then I was like pissed, but then we ended up moving to California, and that whole story was like, there's so much chaos in our story, but honestly, he was such a huge support. And now, and honestly, I don't think that that's one of the things, if Caleb would have passed away, if we would have been able to get as close and have our Danny and DJ come into the world, because he wasn't, as much as he loved Caleb, he wasn't wanting a relationship with me. And he loved, like, we were like best friends, and we were, you know, he didn't want it. And so I was like, okay, whatever. But because of what happened, we spent almost every day together. And from that, just like, it just went into what it did. And then we had our kids, and then, you know, life happens, and in 2016 I think it was 2000, yeah, because it'll be 6 years next year, which is crazy. But we were just finally at that point where it's like, okay, we're not good as a couple. Like, we are better as friends. And we've been amazing co-parents. Like, we have our issues, we have our things, we are not perfect at all. And like I said, the man drives me crazy. And Dave, if you're listening, you know you drive me crazy. And I know I drive you crazy, and it's fine. But he's an awesome dad. And he lives 4 minutes away from me. And we don't have like a custody thing. Like, if he needs to take the kids, or if I need to take the kids, we have an arrangement kind of, but it's very loose. And if I need money, he'll give it to me. If he needs money, I'll give it to him. And like, it's very organic and it's very awesome. And even with my new fiance, like it's taken some time because Dave has not want, like as soon as I left, he was like, wait a minute, I don't want you to leave. But a lot of what kept us together was Caleb. And because I never thought I would find anybody who would even grasp how to handle me dealing with, because I'm not just a mom, I'm an angel mom too, and that comes with a whole slew of things.
Right.
There's not, like, even my kids they get it, and Caleb is very much a part of my life and their lives. And but my new guy, like Brent, he's amazing. Like, he even set up a little corner in our house that's totally dedicated to Caleb, and I didn't even ask for it. And I didn't really have, like, I have a picture of him, but I didn't have that. But I write kids' books in honor of my son, and he framed them all and put them in this whole thing and made this cute little, like, Caleb corner for him. And
That's
I was
cool.
like,
That's
you know,
awesome.
it was so beautiful when he did that and surprised, like, I was just in awe. I'm like, you get it. Like, that was my biggest fear. And people understand and they're there, but they don't always get it. And even hit me, like, he's a dad, and so now I have my bonus daughter, and her and my daughter are best friends, and it's amazing, and I love it. But there are those times when I'm just like, you know, you don't get it. And he's like, but I want to, so tell me. And I'm like, oh, that's all I need sometimes, is just to have somebody be like we were in the show that I was co-hosting, when sometimes all you need to do is have somebody to listen.
Yeah.
And to have somebody, like, when I'm going through my moments of, like, I'm a terrible mom and this and all those things, of, you know, just to sometimes listen and be like, well, I love you, and look at all these beautiful things in your life. And, like, it's really cool. And Dave really actually likes him too. And even though I know he still has his things, him and Brent really get along, and that makes it so much better for the kids and so much better for everything. And so
Yeah.
It's really cool that you guys can have that type of relationship still, because
Yeah.
I went through it with my daughter's mom, and it took us a while to finally grow up and realize, you know, we've got to be friends for the kids.
Yeah.
And apparently we cared about one another at one time, because we got married and we had two incredible kids together. And it just breaks my heart to see when people break up relationships and their kids involves, they start using those kids as leverage. And that, man, that just torques me.
Yeah.
Because those kids don't deserve it. You need to stop thinking about your frickin' selves and start thinking of those kids, because the kids need both parents. Even if you're separating, they still need that man and that woman, because that's why there's a man and a woman, you know, and it's because you have to have the influence from both. You know, there's things that my mom gave me that my dad couldn't give me. There's things that my dad gave me that my mom couldn't give me. And when you're trying to break that shit apart, you know.
Well, and that's where it's so sad. I'm like, I feel really good because I've gotten to know some of the girls that Dave's dated, and they've reached out to me, and they're like, you know, it's really cool to see this relationship, and I just want you to know that your kids are so well put together and well adjusted, but it's because we have this.
Yeah.
And if somebody comes into our life, and like Brent, and he's like, you know, I'm not trying to be a dad, but I am a part of this village now that's trying to raise these kids.
Yeah.
And I'm a mentor. That's why we say bonus mom and bonus dad, and because it's that influence, and we need more than just one.
Yes.
And
Agreed. Yeah, you got to have that.
I
And
think-
go
yeah.
ahead. No, go ahead.
I think
hon.
all kids could use as much help as they can
Oh,
get.
I know.
You know?
My best friend,
Yeah.
I'm like, you come. She's like, let me come over. You're having a stress day. Let me take the girls to go get coffee. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I need you too. It takes a
Yeah.
village. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Well, and you said it earlier. We all need support from somewhere, you know. And the show that you were on as guest co-host, I mean, Lori and Lindsay shared, you know, come from a decent home, but also their mom and dad didn't get along,
Yeah.
and what it did to the kids. So
Yeah.
people out there to listen, if you're going through a separation, okay, fine, but
Don't have your kids
by
around.
gosh,
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I went to Kentucky, when I had that opportunity, because I realized every time my ex and I got together, we were freaking like cats and dogs. And I'm looking at my kids and they're bawling, and it's because it's affecting them. I'm like, I don't want them to be around this stuff, and guys out there, it's going to affect the kids in one way or another. Whether they don't realize that it's getting into their adulthood, it can actually get them to where, not saying and hoping that they won't, but it could lead to an addiction, or it could lead to a suicide, because
or divorce in their own life,
or their own divorce in their own life. So, stop using the flipping kids as leverage and be flipping adults. Work it out. If you don't like each other, fine, you don't like each other, but by gosh, keep the kids out of it. Don't use them for leverage.
Our children deserve to learn what healthy emotional behavior looks like.
Well put.
And we help change things by learning how to do that ourselves. And so, it's so important. And I don't think we realize how important it really is until we are, coming out the other side of all the muddy water and going, oh man, this doesn't work. So they deserve that. They deserve to see what healthy emotional behavior and how to really handle things in productive
Well,
ways.
and I think that also too it's important, because I grew up in a house where my parents were together, but it was not pretty, and I wanted it to be done. Like I would want it to be done since I was a little girl, and finally it did after I moved out, and I'm like, oh, that's great, but that's good for my little brother, but we never were taught how to do that either. And and I was like, from a very young age, I'm like, I don't believe in staying together for the kids, because that's not healthy, obviously.
Well,
and it's taken me
yesterday.
Exactly. And it's taken me several relationships to figure out, like, oh, it's not about whether or not you fight. And sometimes, like, Brent and I will fight, and sometimes it gets ugly. And if the kids hear it, they also get to hear us reconnect. And we also talk to them about, like, sometimes, you do fight, and that's okay too. Like, people need to know that it's okay to argue, and it's not like, oh no, I have a terrible relationship because I'm arguing.
It's completely normal.
And I don't believe in totally sheltering the kids. I mean, we obviously try, if we're having a big discussion, not to have the kids, there or whatever. But if they are, or if they hear it or whatever, and it's also good and healthy to say, this is how we work through it, because it's normal. You're two different adults, come from different backgrounds, come from different experiences
and beliefs
and everything, and trying to come together and make it work as one. And there's gonna be some friction, just like with healing. I mean, you gotta go through some dark stuff sometimes to get to the light.
It's like traffic, right? Some days you go home through traffic, everything's great. Other days people are flipping you off, you're flipping people off.
Exactly.
You don't understand why we're driving 20 miles under the limit?
But okay, well put. And do you feel, Chalese, that the stuff that you've gone through with the loss of your son and that, and I think I already know the answer, but I'm asking it anyway, that it has helped you to where you were at right now? Do you think you would be at where life is at with you now, and how you understand things and how you're looking at things if it wasn't for that?
No, absolutely not. I think that there's always been something in me that I knew that I was going to make an impact in some way with some stories somehow, but because I've always been a writer and I've always wanted to help people and all that stuff, but never would I be where I'm at if it wasn't for that. And that's where I say that I'm grateful that I had the tragedy in and of itself to be able to come to this place. And there's another book that I was reading that they were talking about, like, when you lose a child, like, that's a hole that will never be filled, but what it does is it expands you as a person, and it really has. And that's why, and now I run a nonprofit organization helping kids with congenital heart disease as well. And one of the reasons why I did that is because the only thing that, well, at first I thought when I started it was going to be helping people through grief and loss, because I've been through a lot of grief and loss, and I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of my path. But I ran into a family that their little boy was going through a heart transplant, and I never realized that I didn't actually heal from knowing my son donated his heart valves, because it's the only thing that they could save. But he saved another child's life. And I remember a couple weeks after, he died, I got this letter in the mail saying, congratulations, your kid saved another child. And I looked at that. I mean, it wasn't exactly like that. It was a little more sensitive. But that's how I read it. I was like, and they gave me this little, like, pendant thing. And I was like, great. That's awesome. And I threw the letter into my pile of things that I, was going to deal with later. I took the pendulum up and I put it on on his grave. And I was like, good job, buddy. And then I walked away. And I never actually dealt with it until this family. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the other side. And I was like, this is where because I've helped so many people in hospitals with their kids going through traumatic things. And I've been there, and I'm like, I guess I'm supposed to be this person that gives people hope while they're going through the tragedy, not just with the loss. It's during that process too. So then I met this family, and I was like, I have to deal with this. And all the emotions from that came up, but then I got to see the other side. And then these families just kept like coming to me, and I'm like, okay, I guess now we're helping the heart babies and heart kids, and it's perfect because my son had the biggest heart in the whole world. Like every time we'd go to the grocery store, and this is in my book too, but every time he went into the grocery store, he'd be like, hi, my name's Caleb. I love my mommy. Do you want to be my best friend?
I love it.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at in the book. Yes. Yep.
And he had a huge heart, and everybody's always said to me, like, my superpower is love, and I love with all my heart and deeply, and you can hurt me and everything, and I don't necessarily have to have you in my life anymore, but I will always love you, and if you need me, I'll be there. And apparently somebody out there needed to hear that because that just came out. But I'm like, it just makes sense because it's my heart kids now, and they're like my family, and it's so cool. And I love my little heart babies. And there's a lot of loss in that too, because they lose what they thought was going to be the life with their kids, and now it's different, and sometimes they don't make it, and then it's that. And I just got a, message the other day from one of my heart moms that said, these things aren't working out the way we thought. I don't know what's going to happen. If anything happens to him, that's it. And so just being able to be that person that they can come to and just say, like, I just need you. And they're like, you get it more than most people do. Even though I don't have a heart. Yeah, even though I don't have a heart kid. But at the same time, there's so many reasons that I'm supposed to be where I'm at. And so, yes, it absolutely expanded me as a person and has made my purpose so deep, which is why this, even talking about my story, fills my soul. Like, I feel like even it's hard to talk about, but at the same time, it makes me so much lighter because I know I'm supposed to share.
Yeah.
So
that's a really good point. And we hear that on this show quite a bit. I mean, I started thinking about it a little bit more last night after listening to Lori and Lindsay, and that gosh, we've had a lot of people on this show that has actually shared for the very first time, and how much that's helped them. It did something for them, and to me that is so cool that and some I mean, we had a phone call this morning of somebody saying, hey, just be careful because they're also afraid of some repercussion to come back for sharing. We respect that, because again, this is their show. But it helped them so much. I mean, they thanked us for, thank you for giving us opportunity to be able to get this out. Mm-hmm. Because
for their own healing.
For their own healing, yeah. And it doesn't help us to hold that stuff in. And like you said, we need somebody You know, it's been talked about, you know, and Charity even talked about it. We have to have somebody, and I don't know how many times we've stressed on this show, and I think JD and Charity and other people have said, look, find somebody that you can talk to that will listen. Not somebody that's going to sit there and give you a ton
All
of
this
advice
advice.
because they're not in your freaking shoes. I could give you all kinds of advice about how you should act after losing a son or
Yeah.
a daughter, but how the hell do I know?
Yeah.
I've not lived it.
Yeah.
You know, so people that reach out to you, even though it's kind of a little bit different, but it's not,
Yeah.
you've lived it. So you know
Yeah.
the feelings and the anger and
Yeah.
the pain that goes behind it.
You know, I love that you said that, because that was why I knew that I needed to write my book, like right after it happened, pretty much, is because I got so many grief books on how to grieve and what you should expect while grieving and all of these things. And I'm like, I didn't even pick them up. I'm like, nobody can tell me, no doctor is going to tell me, no person is going to tell me what I'm going to go through when I'm grieving. And I know that there's this certain, like, you know, there's the steps of grief, and I get that, and they are there, but they don't all happen in a line.
Yeah.
They don't
No.
all happen like, okay, and
Step
7
one.
days later, you're going to do this.
Step
And-
2.
I wish it went
I-
in a line.
right? I
Oh
wish
my
that,
word.
that would be so nice.
Yeah.
But, you know, and so then I'm like, okay, well, I don't know when I'm going to release this book, but every time I wrote in my journal, and there are journal entries in my book, and there's poems in my book, and every time I was writing specifically because I knew that that was what somebody someday would need to hear.
Yeah.
And because I'm now a mom who's going through this. And finally when I released it, it took me 15 years. Because I always thought, well, when I'm at this point, like then I'll be healed, and so then I'll go. And I had to even get through that point where I was like, no, I feel pretty good. I feel like I'm healed. Like I'm good. It's been 13 years at this point. And my friend who lost her husband actually too, and we really connected on that level, but she's like, I don't think you ever get over it. And I'm like, well, I feel good. Like, of course I'm still sad sometimes, but like
Yeah.
I feel good. And then I'm like, oh, I'm not good. and then I was like, but maybe that's where I need to go with this. And so finally I'm like, it's a never ending journey. So now it's finally time to release this book, because I'm never going to be healed ever. But maybe that's what people need to hear. And because people, I know that I was like, okay, well, how long do I feel this way? And it's different for everybody. And somebody just, and my story is not going to heal you at all. I'm not going to tell you that it's going to heal you. But what my story does is it talks about just my journey. And I've experienced so many different walks of life through this journey that maybe one of them will help you, give you hope that it's not going to hurt that bad all the time.
Right.
And, you know, even with addiction, even with all the things, it's like it doesn't always have to. And even if you're having a good day, you don't have to feel guilty for having a good day. They want you
Well
to have
put.
a good day. And like there's so many little pieces of it that I'm like, I'm not afraid to talk about any of it. I'll talk about the dark, icky, yucky stuff. I'll talk about the times when I freaked out and nearly lost my mind because I went into this psychotic episode. Like I talk about all of that. And I'm not afraid to talk about it, because you might be, even though you're experiencing it right now. Like I'm here. I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
I'm not in your shoes. I'm not there. I don't have that same story. Not one of us do. But
Right.
but I'm here to help you. And I'm also here to be an advocate for when anybody has a tragedy happen to their children. And we were talking about this, how like the first thing everybody does is blame their parents. Well, they should have been there. You should have been there. Why weren't they there? If it was my kid, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I'm like, no, you don't get
That's
to do
horrible.
that. Because
Yeah.
for one, they're beating themselves up more than anybody on this planet ever can imagine that they're beating themselves up for. And for two, you weren't there. You don't know. And
Yes.
you have done the same thing as a parent. You just lucked out and it didn't end up like that. So
That's so
I
true.
love it. Yeah.
I'm really passionate about that one.
Yeah. Well,
You should be, yes.
you nailed it. I mean, really, that's you hit it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. All right, guys, we're going to stop for another quick commercial break. Stay tuned because we will be right back.
Good morning, this is Leticia with Computer Hospital. We are your computer repair experts for both PC and Mac. We are your community resource for all of your computer repair needs. What makes us different is that we want to fix your computer. We also do free diagnostics. We charge a flat rate labor, which means that you won't pay by the hour. All of our computer repair is done in-house with a fast turnaround time, and same-day service is also available. Feel free to stop by anytime without an appointment. We're located in Sandy at 8721 South State Street. Again, that's 8721 South State Street, or call us at 801-987-3993. Again, that's 801-987-3993. This is Leticia with Computer Hospital, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Hello there, this is Brad Neufeld with the Resilience Talk Network, and I would like to introduce to you Taffytown, one of our newest sponsors. Let me introduce you to Derek.
Hi, I'm Derek from Taffytown. We're proud sponsors of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Taffytown is a family-owned and operated business still operating in the Salt Lake City area for over 100 years. We manufacture some of America's best saltwater taffy.
What makes Taffytown stand out from all of the others?
We have a unique recipe, a whipped-style recipe that incorporates egg whites, evaporated milk, real sea salt. It's a unique product that is flavorful, melts in your mouth, and the best part is we probably have a flavor for anyone's liking, a flavor for any reason, for any season. We have unique flavors like chicken and waffles, maple bacon, frosted cupcake. New this year was a pineapple ghost pepper flavor.
That's awesome. Where can people find out more about Taffytown and all of its products?
You can check all of this stuff out. All of our products are available for sale on taffytown.com. We ship for free from our website, so all of our pricing on there is shipping included. Oftentimes we offer special promotions and discounts to our loyal customers, so do be sure to sign up for an account. And we look forward to seeing what we can do to make you smile with our taffy.
Where are you located?
We are currently located at 9813 South Prosperity Road in West Jordan, Utah, just at the foothills of the Copper Canyon mine.
Derek, taffy has always been a great gift to give. What are some of the creative ways Taffytown can help say thank you to others?
Yeah, if you're looking for gift ideas, whether to say thank you to friends or family, or maybe to your clients after such a difficult or successful year that you've had, you could look no further than to get a gift idea from taffytown.com. We offer pre-packaged gift boxes that say that it's saltwater taffy from the city of the Great Salt Lake, and it tells a little bit about the history of our community and making candy for so long. You can also do customized gifts to pick out just the right flavors or colors of candy for that special someone and deliver even a personalized message in that box to them. So please feel free to check out taffytown.com for any gift ideas this season.
Thank you so much, Derek. Please visit taffytown.com, that's taffytown.com, to find out more about the products and services that Taffytown offers. You won't be disappointed.
Do you know someone who's gambling with death due to an addiction? Do you know someone whose life is being turned upside down due to a loved one that's battling with addiction? Hi, I'm Al Richards. I am the host of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. I started the podcast due to my wife's battle with alcohol. Let's just say I became addicted to her addiction. Our podcast is helping people understand a little more about those who have battled addiction and those who are hurting from their addiction. Through raw vulnerability, we share stories that help uncover the root causes of addiction. Shame felt on both sides, matter of the conscious and subconscious mind, continued beliefs, and often confusing paths of recovery. We collaborate with real people and their stories, as well as licensed professionals, to help our audience gain a better understanding of addiction. You can find us on Resilience Talk Network. You can also find us on Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. That's Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. You can also find us on YouTube. Just look up the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Other Side of Addiction. Man, we've had a great show. Before we wrap this thing up, we want to say thank you to more of our sponsors. We want to thank Troy Hoddle with I Am Power Ninja Real Estate, TJ McLeland with Fitness Realty, and my friend that I met at a West Jordan Chamber event, Tatiana Rose with Advanced Business Books. So guys, thank you for your support. Thank you to all our listeners out there, all our sponsors, and a huge thank you to Brad Newfield with Resilience Talk Network, to all our guests, to all our guest co-hosts. I mean, guys, we couldn't do this without you. I mean, seriously, we couldn't, and we feel very, very blessed. Our subscribers on YouTube, man, it just keeps growing. Yeah, I'm just shocked, and I'm very grateful and appreciative of everybody. Big thank you to my wife, because again, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for her addiction. That's what started this whole movement, as Charity says. Yeah, it has really started it.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got to respect Chalese's time. She's got a place she's got to be. Chalese, thank you for coming out and sharing.
Yes, thank you.
You know, such a devastating part of your life, but also a blessing. You know, I mean, you have taken to where a lot of people haven't been able to dig themselves out of, but you have been able to take it and take the positive side of things. And now you're out there, you're helping so many other people. You're there for somebody if they need to call, because you've been in their shoes, you know what they're feeling. I mean, I think what you're doing is just incredible. I mean, she thought I was going to say phenomenal. I threw a wrench in the spoke on this one. But yeah, I think what you're doing is just incredible. Please, I want people to know about your book. Janan, I think, read half of it last night. So how do people find your book? What's the name of your book?
So it's called Finding 40, A Mother's Walk with Grief, and it's on Amazon, it's on barnesandnoble.com, and it's actually also in the Oasis Cafe downtown. They have it in their book section. And that happened last summer. I was really excited about that. So
Yeah.
and really anywhere books are sold. So, and it's a quick read. I feel like it's powerful. It was definitely from my heart and my soul, and I had a little help too. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Is there anything that you would like to share with our listeners that, you know, going through addiction or going through a loss that is causing their addiction? I mean, what is something that you feel that helped you?
You know, honestly, what helped me most is just having the courage to reach out and having the courage to talk about my story. And I know that I've run into so many people that it's hard for them to talk, and I understand, and that's okay. But, you know, you don't always have to share the whole story all the time, but just being able to share the pieces of it that will, it heals you. It really does. Because whenever you're sharing your story and what you're going through, even if you're in the thick of it, it helps someone else and it helps yourself. And because then you get to, it's like you take it from the inside and you put it out there and you get to look at it. And it's almost like a reflection, and it's
Right.
almost like that mirror. And it's such a huge benefit to have the courage to ask for help. or just ask to be there for somebody, or just say, hey, let's go have some lunch, and I don't want to talk about anything. I just need somebody to be by my side. So that's, I think, the biggest thing is finding that little piece of you inside that just forces you to do it even when you don't think you want to. You need to. And
I love
it's
it.
Powerful.
That is very powerful. And, people, just because you ask for help doesn't mean you're weak.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all need it. We all need help one way or another. So, yeah, if you are afraid to look for or ask for help because the fear of people thinking that you're weak, that's not true. Because if you're asking the right person for help, they're not going to look at you as weak.
Yeah.
They're going to be there to support you any way that they can.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. A great show. Again, thank you, Chalese, for being with us today, and thank you for being a guest co-host. I mean,
of course,
it was
fun.
You added a whole new spin to the show. Had some great questions, so thank you so much. And hopefully here in the near future, maybe all of us can get together and we can do some kind of event or something, because I know there's a bunch of us that really want to do that, because we all have a story to tell. We've all been through some shit, some different than others, but somehow, some way, through a higher power or through a spirit or a loved one that we've lost that have pushed us to a whole different level, to be able to get out there and share our stories in hopes that even if we can save one person, it was all worth it.
Yeah.
So thank you. Ladies, do you have anything you'd like to share before we sign off?
I don't think so.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story of grief and overcoming and your own journey of recovery. Thank you for the privilege of being here and to share our hearts, and
Thank you.
that means a lot.
Yeah.
I always love making new friends, so this is always fun.
I know that's another part of this stuff that I just love, because the people that are coming in are just phenomenal people. I mean, they're just great
Phenomenal
people, with so much energy and holiness, I guess is the word for it. I don't know, it's amazing what happens.
It's a whole different realm of light. That's what comes up for me. It's a world that I only dreamed of, that to me felt like a fantasy, and it's real and better than imagined.
Yeah, our family is growing.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, because really this is what it's like, our family, and it's from everywhere. I mean, I don't know how many times Lori told us how much she loves us yesterday and again today. I mean, it's so cool because we're getting love from all over the world, so it's great. All right, guys, so I shared this on a show yesterday, and I'm going to share it again because Charity wrote this, and I just think it's great to use on this show. So the Other Side of Addiction podcast, basically people come on with raw vulnerability. We share stories that help uncover the root causes of addiction. Shame felt on both sides, which I really like that, because all of us feel some type of shame. Matters of the conscious and subconscious mind, continued beliefs, and the often confusing path of recovery. And I like that, and I actually have it underlined here, the often confusing path of recovery, because those who are battling addiction are confused, and us on the other side of that addiction are confused. Hopefully this show is going to help people out there with the guests that we have on our show and being vulnerable. And basically we've had people share all the time they love how vulnerable and raw this podcast is. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and we're going to leave you as we always do. Addiction is giving up everything for one thing. Recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.